I have the beginning of the quilting done. I've outlined some of the basic edges around, if you can see this, around the outside. At the center piece is marked, but I'll do those quilting as I go. I've used two layers of batting. This is hopefully going to make the quilting stand out more. What I'm doing in the center here is a real dense pattern, and that'll push this way down, which in turn will make the places that are not quilted stand out more. At least that's my plan. So what I'm doing, let's see, I've got this is a Singer clone, which is to say that it's a machine that was made in the style of a Singer 15, but it was made in Japan, and this particular one was made badged for sale at Montgomery Ward. But it's a great little machine. Got it in my Treadle. I have 40 weight cotton quilting thread in there. When I was setting it up, this is the first time I've used this particular machine for free motion quilting, and so I tried a couple of different feet until I got one that was giving me good results. It's interesting. You get to thinking that I had the one I had in last was working great. So I have several different styles. This is just a few, and just if they work really well on one machine, it does not necessarily mean that they're going to work on another machine. So I like to have a few different styles and try them all out and see which one works best. In this case, this plastic version seemed to work well on this machine. They all behave a little bit differently depending on the specifications of the machine. They're supposed to be fairly universal, but there are some slight differences in the, for example, in the distance between the lever on the quilting bar and the screw on the needle clamp, how far down the presser bar brings the foot. There's just slight differences that make a difference. So it's good to have a couple of choices, try them out, and then pick the one that works the best. This particular machine has feed dogs that I can drop, so I did that. And one of the other things that you need to do every time you switch to a different quilt, you're going to have different fabric, you're going to have different thread, you're going to have different batting. You will probably need to do a test and make some adjustments to your tension. So the tension here is usually where you can do all the adjusting. I don't like to mess with the tension in the bobbin case. Sometimes you need to do that in order to get it to be exactly right, but for the most part, if you've got the tension in the bobbin case set correctly, you can, I'm going to cut these threads off because they're distracting me. If you've got the bobbin tension in the case correct, you can pretty much make all your adjustments on the tension dial to get the the tension right. The other thing that you can adjust on this machine and most machines, they have either a screw or a knob or something here that is the pressure lever on the foot that creates how much pressure that foot has on the fabric. So you might need to do some adjusting on that to get that so that the foot is gliding over the fabric correctly and not pushing the, you know, if it's going down too hard, it'll push the fabric instead of gliding over it. This particular foot has a curved edge that curves up, so that helps to prevent that kind of plow effect as the foot glides across. That front edge is up, so it prevents puckering, and that's a nice feature of this one. Some of them have, you know, this one's totally flat, so it is easier for that one to see. If I start working and come to an edge, do you see how it can create a bit of a pucker there? Anyway, they're all different, and so find one that works for you on your particular machine, and work on your settings, and that's all it takes. The other thing that you're probably hearing is this rather steady thump, 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 thump. It's really not the machine. This particular treadle base is very loud. I really need to take it apart and rebalance it, but it works, and so I haven't done it yet. But this machine itself is really pretty quiet. I just took the throat plate out and cleaned out some lint, gave it a good oiling before I started, put in a new needle, all things that are good to do before you start a new project. This is a 9014 needle. In fact, it is, I don't know if the camera can pick that up. It's from the Superior Thread Company, 9014 top stitch needle, and with this thread, it's working really well. And I just broke my thread, and I don't know if you could see what happened, but when I started, I wasn't looking at what I was doing, and the flywheel. Let me show you here if I can get this to work. The wheel up here was turning. The wheel was turning the wrong direction when I started it, and that pulled the thread and broke it. So I'm going to re-thread it and start again. But anyway, I won't show you every single stitch here. I'll do a little bit more, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like after the middle and some other parts are filled in, so you can get a sense for what it's going to look like. This probably is not, at this point, looking like a heck of a lot, but I did want to show you how some of the quilting is filling in. When you can only see a small portion of it, you can't really determine what the design is going to be, but once I get some more of it filled in, I think it'll start to show out. What you can see, I hope, is that the areas that are not quilted are really starting to stand out nicely. The white thread is also giving me a great contrast with the red fabric, so hopefully this the thread is really going to be the only color I need to make this work. I'll keep quilting away, and many hours of work when you're doing this kind of tight style of quilting, so it may be a while before I get all of this done. And I always forget to time myself. People ask, well, how long does it take to do that? I don't know. Maybe I'll try and keep track of time. But anyway, next several hours will be spent doing some quilting, and then I'll show you where I get from there. Are you helping? Did you want to help? Okay, just a minute. I think you can see the design starting to emerge there. This is it's going to be a rose. I don't know if that's real apparent, but that's the beginning of it. I'm working on lots of filling. I'm going to zoom in and do a little quilting, and hopefully you'll be able to get a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. I just going to try and get my camera adjusted. As you can see, I'm not a cameraman, but that looks like that should do it. Anyway, I have white thread to contrast really nice with the red fabric, and I'm getting pretty good loft on the unquilted parts. And the way that's happening is I have used 2 layers of batting, and that second layer is making for a pretty good look. Now, I wouldn't recommend this heavy quilting and 2 layers of batting if it was going to be a quilt that you would actually use for putting on your bed. It does make the hand quite stiff, but for a wall quilt, that's ideal. It helps to keep it laying flat. The other thing I don't know if I said before is I spray basted the layers together, so I don't have any pins to work around in, and that's seems to be working fine for me. I used June Taylor, I think, was the brand of spray basting I used on this one. Anyway, so this design is it's just a series of circles, and very slow movements make it happen. I don't want to get going a million miles an hour, because frankly, the faster I go, the less likely I am to get decent looking stitches. I get going too fast and my stitch length gets messed up. Now, it's a matter of what you're used to. I know there are some machine quilters who can just zip right along with this treadle, and with my particular skill set and style. I have much better success with a relatively slow and steady approach rather than trying to go fast. You will have to find your own comfort zone as far as speed and everything else goes. Anyway, the overall goal is consistency, and that's with machine quilting and with hand quilting. One of the things that, I started hand quilting and did most of my quilts for the first 9 years that I quilted were all hand quilted. I just started machine quilting this year. But I like to keep in mind the same things that I strive for in my hand quilting with my machine quilting, and that is consistency, the length of stitches, the spacing, the same kinds of things that I would look for in a machine, in a hand quilted quilt, I would look for in a machine quilting. So while the technique is different, there are many things that are the same. Hopefully you can see how this is coming together here. I have a hard time looking up and seeing the camera while I'm looking down and seeing what I'm doing. So I just have to assume that things are showing up. But this is nearly the end here on this first rose motif. This is 1/8 of the center of the quilt. Beyond the part that I'm quilting now will be fill stitched with some other design. Not exactly sure what, but something else. So in effect, the basic design will be the areas that are not quilted will create the design. The areas that I'm quilting become the background and the contrast. And again, that will show more when I have more of it done. But I think you can sort of get the general feeling of where I'm going with that. After I started this, I've got white backing fabric. It's a white, I can't remember if it's a Kona or one of the other. It's one of those kinds of basic solid color quilting cottons. And after I did some of this on the front, I thought to myself, really would have made more sense to use a colored backing too. The quilting on the back, I don't know if you can see it, it's all texture, but it doesn't give me a nice color contrast like the other side. So I think it might have been fun to have a, if I'd used a green background or some other color, so it would have been more of a reversible quilt. But be that as it may, I see here that I have run out of bobbin, so time for me to stop, and I'll come back in a bit and show you some more. But this is the direction we're headed. So zoom out again, so maybe you can see the overall rose that's coming out. So back soon. I was having, this machine is right in front of a window, and I was getting a lot of glare on the, I was using this foot, and it's clear plastic, but I kept getting glare through the light from the window, and I couldn't see where I was going. It was driving me crazy. So I put in a metal foot that's very much the same as that one. It's just made out of metal, and the profile is a lot smaller. So I'm having good results with that. It's only difference is that I had to release the top pressure all the way. Every foot setting is a little different, and this one needed to be way up to make the transition from over this really dense material, because like I said, I've got 2 layers of batting. Anyway, I think you can see where I'm headed with this now. The design's starting to show up. This seam ripper is not being used to rip anything out. I just use it to cut my threads. So don't fear that I'm going to try and tear these million stitches out. Anyway, let me get a few more stitches done with this foot so you can see how that goes. Bring up my bottom thread, and oh, by the way, see all this thread? I am a notorious thread waster. I just don't, I guess I'm too lazy to be careful and get just a little short piece, so I've always got these mile-long tails that I end up with. So I admit that it's a waste of thread, but it just seems to be the way I end up doing it. I end up with giant long tails that I have to pull off. If you have a fancy newer machine, you'll have way less of that, because they'll automatically cut the thread off and all of those kinds of things. But with these oldies, you gotta pull the bobbin thread up from the bottom, and I just end up with giant long tails. And again, this machine itself is really quiet, but the treadle base that it's in is not. It's going to sound like my machine is having a real struggle here. It is not at all. It's the treadle base that I keep meaning to adjust. I never think of it until I've got a camera running and trying to talk. Because after a while, I don't even hear it. And then I try to talk, and I think, oh, geez, that really is loud. So, I think, basically the rest of this, until I get all of these roses done, the rest of all the quilting on this is going to be more of the same. So you don't need to be watching me do a million stitches inches of the very same thing. When I get all of this white infill done on all of the roses, then I will have the background to do, and that would be everything on the outside edges that's not the rose, and that'll be something different, so I will show you that. But for now, I think I'm gonna go back to quilting and turn the camera off, and we'll come back when I've got all of this heavily quilted stuff done. And that's going to take me quite some time, but it's fun.